Now, the Ministry of Energy last week increased their petroleum regulatory levy to 0.75 shillings per litre, up from 0.25. Now, the levy is one of 9 taxes and levies that are charged on fuel and has been increased to fund the operations of the energy regulator. The others are excess duty, road maintenance levy, petroleum development levy, railway development levy, anti-adulteration levy, merchant shipping levy, import declaration fee, and value added tax, which we of course know as VAT. Now, the increase of the levy last week went largely unnoticed because the energy regulator reduced the overall price of fuel by 1 shilling per litre. Now, with all this information that we have, we are joined by Fred Nabangi, who is an engineer and also an economist. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
All right. Now, from this development last week, now we have the levy up 0.75 from 2.5. What is your reaction when you hear such a report or such information that we have now? EPRA has gone ahead to say, okay, we've reduced 1 shilling, but on the other side, they are increasing the levy.
Okay, the increase of that levy shouldn't really be a big deal if one considers that it was introduced initially in 2014.
Okay.
I think at about 0.12 or 0.15 of a shilling to a litre. Then it was moved up at some point along the way. And of course, right now it's being increased, perhaps threefold, one would say. Maybe the point would be those increases, are they correspondent with what it's applied to, rather than whether it should be on its own are concerned. What does it do? And why would you increase it now? From the standpoint of escalating costs all around, if this is what runs EPRA, if that levy is what runs EPRA, then perhaps its increase should not be a big deal. We shouldn't even talk about it.
Okay.
But of course, if you look at it in context with the rest of the other taxes, it's an extra amount to the consumer. Whether it's appropriate to introduce it now or later, it will just be a question of timing. It would come. Its use is what we should be questioning and discussing. And perhaps whether it should have been increased threefold or it should have gone a little less. But in my understanding, that would be a levy that would continue going up a little, just to take care of the services that EPRA offers the consumers in the various segments where that tax is applicable. Yes.
All right. Now, still on this, now, when we move forward, 14th of next month when it comes, and then we also have 1 shilling drop, and then we have another increase. And then we say this continues for maybe 3 months or 4 months. What do you think will be the effect?
Okay, first of all, the cost of fuel is composed of many things, including the taxes you've enumerated.
Yes.
The 9 taxes. But the main elements are 2. The source cost and the dollar as it plays.
Yes.
So if the source cost keeps going up or fluctuating, there will be fluctuation. If the dollar also fluctuates, we will see fluctuation. The extent of fluctuation is a matter of arithmetic. And there is a formula, of course, for determining the price of petroleum product in this country, as in other jurisdictions. But the 2 overriding forces, which is the source cost and the dollar, because oil is bought on dollar.
Yes.
So if our shilling, for example, loses ground against the dollar, our cost of fuel and our pricing in the market here will go up. If it gains, as we're hopeful now it will continue gaining, perhaps to 120, then we should actually see a reduction overall because of the 2 main forces that are responsible for the pricing of petroleum product. But all taxes, I think, constitute probably 40 to 50%, if they are collectively put together, of the cost of what we pay for in petroleum product, or most imported products, as it were. So, for as long as that range is there, the small increase that we saw for EPRA, which still is a concern, is not as significant as, say, the 16% VAT or other taxes, including probably soon we shall have the increase in the Kenya Roads Board, Kenya Roads Fund or something, because even that may be up for review, and that will still escalate. Now, if it's actually being used for a good cause, it's a tax we should be happy to pay. The question should be, if the levy is coming, but the services are not improving, and therefore we're paying for, we're just taking pain for what? What gain? That's the question. And I think that one would require a lot more analysis than just looking at that increase and saying it's right or wrong.
All right, let's move to another issue. Of course, this week we've been having the housing levy a topic, really. Everyone is speaking about it, and yesterday it passed. Now, when we look at something like the housing levy, I would like to pick your mind on this. What is your reaction to this? And what do you think is going to be the outcome of this come next month? I mean, the pay slips now, how are they going to be looking? And first of all, your reaction. I would just like to get your reaction on this.
Okay, well, there's been a lot of debate on this one. To's and fro's, to court and back, different orders. And there's a question of whether these court orders have been adhered to, even as it has been now worked on by Parliament to make it constitutional. But what about the one which was charged unconstitutionally? Perhaps that's a debate, which we cannot do right now. So for as long as the housing levy is now lawful, then that will reflect on the pay slips, and of course the pain for those who have pay slips initially will be directly what they were experiencing before. But the law now has been amended to include those who are not on pay slip as well. So the mechanisms for bringing those ones on board is what should be a significant discussion right now. But once it's low, then we'll go by it, pain or no pain. So it is controversial. There's a lot of politics in it, but once you're in agreement with the fact that we need housing, and we need decent housing, which is what the KK government is pushing, then you would have to talk about how you get the money to be able to provide the decent housing. The route that was taken by KK government is taxation. Of course, there are options. They might be slower, they might be less painful, but they are not on the table. So what's on the table is taxation. And if the law allows that to happen, then we have just to live with the pain and look at the gain, or fight for the gain, depending on the perspective.
All right, and also still on this, let me just, because when we were speaking about the levy, the fuel levy that we were speaking about, that we've just spoken about, we're looking at what is the tax doing? Now, when you look at the housing levy, what is this tax going to do? And what are some of the things that are going to do? Because, okay, salary is there. There's a percentage that is being taken out of it. So at the end of the day, when you look at what it's going to do, is it really clear? Are Kenyans really aware, or it's just, okay, they've introduced it, let us just go with it?
Okay, I think that you'd have to look at it two ways. There are some people who are going to pay tax and directly benefit from the housing, should they be interested in acquiring the affordable housing. So that one, I think, is open for some discussion, and people should just organize themselves and work with that program. For those who are on pay slip and maybe who are young, they can actually benefit from this program, the affordable housing program. But for those who are in their twilight years on the pay slip, then of course the benefit can only be either passed on to the next generation or forgone.
Yeah.
And I guess perhaps what should have been considered then is the two parts of this housing levy. Mm-hmm. We're talking about affordable housing. I think that, in my view, should have been made available to those who are young and who may be in need of this. Mm-hmm. So there might be an age bracket on that. But the social housing, that tax should be for, the equivalent of what was going on before, mm-hmm. slum upgrading, mm-hmm. for example. Mm-hmm. But this would be national now. It goes beyond the slum upgrading mm-hmm. and into just making decent housing for everybody in Kenya. Mm-hmm. If that was the thinking behind it, there should be no controversy. It should just be a question of, can we afford that level of taxation? But if it's not that clear in terms of who will be paying for what and who gets which benefit, mm-hmm. then what you are probably creating is a situation where people will feel, you would say, the right to have a home because they contributed some money, no matter how much, and whether they need it or not, mm-hmm. against those who actually need the house, perhaps can contribute to it but not pay as much as those who could. Mm. And the fight will be, now, do you have two homes that you don't need the second one, yes. for example, for those who already have homes?
Yes.
And for those who don't have homes, is this home ever going to be affordable to you? Mm. Because it might be too far, a bridge too far. Mm-hmm. So you are working towards it, but it's a mirage. Then there is also the threat, real threat, that should the Kenya government, change, because it can, we're a democratic country, and the next government chooses to do this project in a different way, even as it's legal, then what happens? Besides, there are models for housing which have been developed elsewhere that worked.
Yes.
And there are others which have been tried and failed. Mm-hmm. I'll talk about two. One model which was started in Spain against the backdrop of the successful Barcelona Olympics in 1992, which was forced down the throats of Spaniards. That is an example of how not to do housing. Mm-hmm. And its reverberations are still ongoing. I don't think they've ever recovered from it, mm-hmm. because it was forced and it was based on what might have been a false premise.
Yes.
That tourism, for example, would sustain housing. Mm-hmm. That's not the case, because other people's happiness is what promoted tourism.
Yes.
So when those other people become unhappy, you have no money. So what do you do with the housing?
Yes.
Such. Mm. Then there was also this thinking that tourism would create enough employment. As we just said, the tourists have options all over the world. It doesn't have to be Kenya or Spain or South Africa or anywhere. So when they shift, and sometimes they do that by trends, depending on what interesting things which have come up, then you are left with the baby, if you are basing it in tourism. Mm-hmm. And I have a feeling that tourism is also at play here, mm-hmm. because that's a sector which is growth for us. Mm-hmm. So if tourism shifts, for example, which is one of the key foreign exchange earners, again the incomes will shrink. Mm-hmm. And then what happens? The taxes which are available for developing the houses will also go down.
Yes.
The demand would have probably gone up.
Yes.
Then there's this question. Are we actually responding to demand, or are we dealing with a need? Those are two different things. Mm. When you're providing a solution to a problem, and if you're doing it in an economic sense, for it to be viable, you have to look at demand, supply. It's viable, it's not. But if you are looking at the need, or exclusively, without thinking about whether you will sustain supplying that need, then in economic terms, that's already failed. Mm-hmm. You have failed before you start. Mm-hmm. I'm not a prophet of doom. The affordable houses are already being, developed and put on the market. So for those of us who are seeing it, it's working. The question has to be not whether it's working. The question has to be, we've survived, the legal challenge. Are we going to survive the economic challenge? Then beyond that, shall we sustain it?
Okay.
How?
Okay.
If we have all those thought out, and there are so many very clever people in the KK government, I am sure they've looked at that. If they feel it will be done, then maybe it will be done. From where I sit, we have only done one handle. There's 2 others, at least.
All right. Engineer Fred Nabangi there. I would just like us to finish this conversation right there and go for a short break. When we come back, we're going to look at financial planning, especially for farmers. We've been speaking about the housing levy, and Fred has been telling us what have we done and what have we not done. And we need also to create awareness, especially when it comes to what these taxes are doing and what they are going to help when it comes to the development of this particular sector. All right, we're going to go for a short break. Don't go too far. We'll be back with more.